Fildeen. And I think we might be live on YouTube now. So we're just talking about, guys, if you're just catching up with us, we're just talking about the extraordinary metalwork skills at the Staffordshire Hoard and things like that. And on Time Team, we've had some extraordinary Anglo-Saxon objects, and Helen was going to talk about a couple of them.
The equal-armed thing was an equal-armed brooch, and that was from the site in Leicestershire that I can't remember the name of. It had two names, and I can't remember either of them. It was quite a late one, you know, something like 2010.
Don't worry, I'm not interested in chronology. Just give me a bit of blame.
Well, it was an open work thing, so lots of holes and kind of like lace, really. And they always have animals on them. Anglo-Saxon brooches, the top end ones, always have animals. And equal arm brooches tend to have kind of dogs, they look like, which is interesting given that we have the dog in the Raunds burial. Maybe hunting scenes. They're derived from Roman art, but by the time they've got to the Anglo-Saxon world, they've become really thoroughly Germanic. They've got kind of a layer of Germanicism on top of them. They look like northern barbarian objects. They don't look like classical objects at all. At Fildeen, there was a great square-headed brooch, and both the equal arm brooch and the great square-headed brooch are big things. They're big, heavy, weighty cloak clasps, really. You couldn't wear them on a flimsy thing like this cardigan. It would pull holes in. And so there's lots of space for animals and sometimes humans, pulling faces, showing off their curly beaks if they're eagles, because you get birds as well, showing off their moustaches if they're humans, twisting their limbs around each other. They're just the most amazing things.
And that gold, I know recently we've got quite excited. There's a thing called a sky disc that was found in Germany, and recent analysis of the gold actually showed that the gold came from Cornwall, somewhere quite near here, and the tin from the bronze came from Cornwall. The Anglo-Saxons must have been importing or getting large amounts of gold from where? Is it the Irish sites or?
I don't know. And it is, but isn't it interesting that all the minerals come from your end of Britain, and yet you don't find anything made with it in Cornwall? Whereas here I am sitting in Suffolk, where we have no minerals, no copper, no tin, no gold, no silver, and we have a lot of Anglo-Saxon gold, silver, copper, tin, lead, etc., etc. It's not where it comes from that determines where it's buried. It's who's got the money, and of course the money tends to come from agricultural resources, and here in Suffolk we've got a lot of those. So it's interesting how the economy worked in those days to spread everything up to the wealthy. Even in those days, nothing changes.
And I've got I should say that we do have some rather nice lunulae, big disc things, and the Rilliton cup from the Bronze Age, but it looks like we were rather good at exporting from this neck of the woods. That economy, that Anglo-Saxon economy, where are we in terms of things like coins and money? I can't remember if we found any coins in that or any kind of form of money in that excavation. What is the money that's used to keep that economy going in Anglo-Saxon sites?
Well, that is a most fascinating question. And if only there was a television program about that, I would be watching it with absolutely, riveted to it. Unfortunately, I don't know. The person you need to ask is a numismatist who studies coins and studies the economy. And they have come up with so many ideas over the years. They're just like modern economists. I was about to say they've got absolutely no idea, but what I'll say instead is they have many theories and they don't know which one's right. So they keep testing them out. And a lot of the time, these theories don't work. So one of the ideas that has raised its head occasionally is that people would pick up late Roman coins and literally use them as the kind of small change that might almost grow on a tree, like using cowrie shells in tropical islands as currency. That all currency is a promise to pay somebody else at a later time. It's a kind of IOU, whether it's a coin or a cowrie shell or a piece of plastic note in your pocket. But the Anglo-Saxons must have had some way of saying, I owe you a day of work or a bit of gold or something, but we don't know what it was. But it's an absolutely fascinating subject.
I think one of the things we picked up when we were doing some work in Dunster, where we did the Dig Village project, was that a number of the Burgle Hidage sites, which are Alfred or Athelstan later, were also mints. And there's some extraordinary books been done about Anglo-Saxon mints. And the person who made the money was called a moneyer, and he had the rights to use that money and make it. And often the money had his peculiar stamp about it. And if he produced counterfeit money, he would lose a hand. It was a very, very serious business. And there seemed to be moneyers who had geographical areas in Britain, certainly around Exeter, around some of the Burgle Hidage forts. There were people producing mints. And I think occasionally we have had moneyers on Time Team, and it's an extraordinary thing to watch somebody hammering a coin. In one Time Team, we were in Birmingham at the Soho Mint, which was a steam-driven mint, and it produced 1,000 coins in an hour or something ludicrous.
It was those really big ones, wasn't it? Those cartwheel pennies.
Cartwheel pennies.
The cartwheel penny was, I think, the biggest coin that Britain's ever issued. The first Anglo-Saxon coins, the shatters, are actually smaller than the decimal half p, if you can remember that. Absolutely minute coins. And they start off around the end of the 7th century. And they're so small that they were very easily lost. And people say, well, what were they for? Were they for buying a loaf of bread or a chicken? And you think, well, no, because they were heavy. There was a lot of silver in them. They were prestige things. They weren't used in marketplaces. We don't really know what they were used for. It was probably something to do with high status trade. So kings buying elite objects that had come from the Mediterranean or whatever. They weren't small change. And then later on, the pennies get to be what you would recognize from a medieval penny. It's much broader, much thinner, and so on. And more people seem to own them. And then they get cut into halfpennies and cut into farthings, fourthings, you know, cut into quarters, which are farthings. And you can kind of get your head around how these might be used. But the earliest Anglo-Saxon coins are really weird things. And they don't really work as currency.
We've got a question from Michael Luke. He's saying, what are the top 3 resources, they might be on your shelves there, preferably books, that you would recommend to someone just beginning to research the Anglo-Saxons? What a nice question. What a nice time Michael is going to have ahead of him if we can direct him in the direction of these books.
Well, that's luckily I got a heads up on